All right, we are live for the first Diversity is Lit book club discussion of 2024.
Yay!
Yay! So welcome everyone. This is the Diversity is Lit book club discussion for our December book of the month pick, which was also for in December, and that was We Are the Origin by C.M. Lockhart.
I read mine digitally, so I can't hold it up.
Nice. Yeah, she had a good ebook deal that I didn't snag.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so if you don't know us, we are Diversity is Lit. We are a book club on Goodreads, and we read one book by a BIPOC author every month and discuss it on my channel, which is what we're doing right now. We will be talking spoilers, so if you're okay with watching the discussion and haven't read the book or didn't finish the book, that's okay. Keep watching. If you do care about spoilers, close out, finish reading the book, and then come back and watch our discussion and participate. So if you don't know me, my name is Holly. I am the YA fantasy author of A Diamond Bright and Broken, which will be coming out in 3 months, which is crazy.
Yay!
Yes, it is a YA epic fantasy with disability rep, sapphic romance, mages, political intrigue, and secrets. So if that's something you're interested in, please check out my book. And then I will let all of my lovely co-hosts introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Heather Venkat, known as WriteHollyDavis on Instagram, and I'm not really active on Twitter, but I'm WriteVenkat on Twitter, and I mostly read and write YA fantasy.
Yay! Oh, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Beasley. I write under the pen name T.A. Beasley. I write thrillers, and I'm also a podcaster over at A Reader's Book Corner. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Arthur T.A. Beasley.
Yay.
Oh, and I'm currently working on my very first paranormal thriller.
Ooh, that's exciting. You want to go? I guess, yeah.
I'm Vanessa, go by Vanessa Marie Books. On all my platforms, I'm a fantasy, paranormal, and horror writer, diversity reader, book publisher, developmental editor, all the things. So, yeah, I literally just finished the book, as I always do, right before this.
I finished it like 3 hours ago, V, so you're not
fresh as the fresh.
Yeah,
it's fresh in your mind.
I listened to the audio I had the audio and the physical, but for the last 2 chapters, I mostly listened to the audio, not the ebook. And so I'm like, I know there's probably some big stuff that happened that I'm kind of missing some things, because it's kind of hard to keep track of things with just the audio.
Mm-hmm.
Could see that, yeah.
Alicia?
All right, cool. I agree with Vanessa on parts of the keeping track of things is hard, and I was reading it in an ebook, so I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit at some point. But hi, I'm writer Alicia Grumley. That's where you can find me on the interwebs, and I am a poet, and sometimes I even write, twisted fairy tales, and I'm working this month specifically on a nonfiction. I don't even know how to qualify it other than a nonfiction guidebook of sorts, maybe is a good way to describe that. I'll have to kind of think through that and get back to you all with a better description. But I'm very happy to be here. Super excited to talk about the story, because I overall thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what everybody says. So.
Yay.
Cool.
Yeah, so everyone is linked down below. Please give them a follow. We will also go through the trigger warnings, which seemed a little scarce from what I had pulled before. And I had found one more, so I don't know if anyone else found some, but the trigger warnings that there are death, violence, murder, injury/injury detail. I also added polyamory. And that was it.
I guess I didn't realize that polyamory was something that was considered in the trigger warnings, but I guess I could see where if someone was really just wanting a, kind of heteronormative story, they might want to know that was there. But yeah, I guess in my head I was like, oh, that's a trigger. But yes, that is something that probably should be discussed with this story in particular.
Actually thinking the same thing as you, Alicia. I was like, that's a trigger.
It is a good addition, I think.
I don't disagree with it. I just had never thought of it as something that someone may.
I guess more of a content warning than
content or
yeah.
But I mean, I also have read up to this point the entirety of the Anita Blake series that's out, and that's by Laurel K. Hamilton, and that is paranormal fantasy, polyamory heavy. So I was just like, oh,
wow,
not just normal every day.
Teresa, you might really like the Anita Blake series. She's a necromancer. She's a necromancer, and she deals with werewolves and vampires and all sorts of other paranormal. So Vanessa, you might enjoy
I like werewolves. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Because I like werewolves.
Yeah, definitely spice. I would not say no spice or light spice. It's spicy.
You said it's Anita. What is it again? Anita?
Anita Blake series. It's Anita Blake Vampire Hunter, I think is what it is. Is the official. It's Laurel K. Hamilton, and it's 30 books long now. The 30th one just came out in November.
Live.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and she's been polyamorous for quite a while. That main character has, probably for at least the back half of the series. So
okay, I'm gonna have to get book one.
In 1993.
Anita Blake.
Yep.
Okay. ANIDA.
ANITA.
TA. Okay.
And then Blake, BLAKE.
Cool.
Okay, I'll have to order the first book and see.
The library has it, T. I'm sure. It's very popular.
What's the name of the book or the author?
The book series is the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series, and the author is Laurel K. Hamilton. I can send a link if you need to. But it's definitely poly, and written in a kind of own voices. The author has been open about her polyamory also.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that one. You got me at werewolves.
I just realized I already have that one on my. The first book is called Guilty Pleasures.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's funny.
Yes, it's not polyamorous at that point, but I mean, if you're gonna start it, you might as well start at the beginning. So.
Yeah, I want to start with the first book.
Yeah.
And then we can go from there.
Exactly.
Cool.
But I mean, yeah, so I guess that is a good jumping in point, like the polyamory. We like it. We like it.
I was just gonna say, even though I marked that as a content warning, I was okay with it, and it's but it was just something that I was like, hey, someone else might have an issue with it. But for
Right.
me, I was like, it's with the gods, and that makes sense. Made sense for the story. So
Yeah.
didn't bother me.
Yeah. I didn't really pay attention to it.
You go, girl.
I was after the action and stuff. I wasn't really paying attention to the part.
The action was excellent. I thought the pacing was great.
Yes.
All throughout.
Yes, I was all for the action.
So I know T had mentioned, she's like, I'm interested to talk about it because I'm curious to know what everyone's.
Yes, I am.
So do you want to lead off, T? Do you want to lead off?
Kick it off?
Well, that's what I get. I put myself on the spot, didn't I?
You did. You put a spotlight.
I really liked the story. I really liked the book. I liked it so much that I went on and got the second book when I ordered this book because I wanted to keep going with them.
Nice.
But some parts, well, it was a lot of people to keep up with, a lot of characters to keep up with it because I was trying to keep up with which god was what and which god chose what vessel, and I got confused at sometimes, and I had to go back to try to figure that part out. But I love the action. Her world building in here was a little bit different than what I'm used to. And that's only because I'm comparing it to like some of the other people I've read, like Renee Dugan and people like that who's written epic fantasy books and their world building. So her world building was a little bit different for me. But overall, I liked the action. I liked Brandy as a character and how she was focused on the guy Jack, and also how she was able to control the I think they're called shaders or shraders.
Mm-hmm.
The big animal. Yeah, the shaders. I like the way she was able to control them, and the shadows in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really get Brandy's relationship with the shadows clear. I couldn't get whether she was a shadow and then she just decided to leave the shadows because she was sent to go protect Sarah. So, and I didn't really get why they had to protect Sarah. So that was kind of confusing for me. But overall, I did like the book. Like I said, I went and bought the second book when I bought the first one because I knew I was going to keep on with the series. So, yeah. But there was just some things that confused me a little bit, and some of it was hard to keep up with all the different gods and the vessels, which was the only issue I had with it, trying to keep up with which vessel was what and whose vessel was it, and what was their whole mission? Why did they need to get vessels, and what were they trying to accomplish? And I realized that when I got to the very end of the book. I was like, oh, that's why.
Yeah. In my notes, I put a little bit overwhelmed with all the characters, and also some of the time jumps were hard to follow. Like I kind of agree with you. Felt like I had to write a lot of stuff down to kind of like try to keep track of things, and I don't think I fully have a grasp of all of the characters even after reading the whole book. But I also liked it overall. I rated it 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I would say I knocked it down a star for those two reasons, as well as just a couple other minor things. I mean, overall, I thought it was well written. I was pulled out of the world a couple times. One was whenever they would bring in a character, I felt like the character names were off. Like there was like Sarah, Kyle, Jack, Bert, Patches, but then there were like fantasy names, like the other characters like Lena
Like,
or
or the
Tara
Zareo.
or Lindo, like all of the gods and
That's
goddesses. Like
yeah.
to me, it didn't seem like a contemporary thing, and then to like have contemporary names, I was like Pine. I was like, not really. I don't really care for that. And not that they can't have those names, but in that world, it felt wrong for me. And then the other part was when they were exploring Lindell, like the academy, I guess. But when they first were talking about disconnecting them from Eden, they're talking about all of the technology, monitors, keyboards, holographs and digital currency. And I was like, well, wait, they're like, they don't have, it's like, if they have that stuff, I would have expected them to have like phones or laptops or something else. So the technology part, I wasn't like super jazzed about. Like, I kind of get it that she made it a separate part of the realm because they were like more advanced, but it did pull me out of it. But overall, I did like it.
Holly or Vanessa, you want to go, or you want me to? I'm fine with either.
I'm fine too.
What?
You can go.
Okay. So I did overall like it. I didn't start it until about last Thursday, and it was because Holly mentioned something in a different group chat we were in, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I gotta work on that," and I was like, "Uh-oh, I better work." Like, time has gotten real weird for me all of a sudden, you guys, and I could go into more about that some other time. But I was like, I also need to read that. Yep, I do, and I'm really glad I did. This is probably the first one I've finished in a long time, and I did read it fully as an e-read. I agree that I liked it overall. I probably would be, like 1 3/4 thumbs up, and that like 3/4 would be, there were a couple parts that took me out of the story, like some of the things Heather mentioned. The timeline was a little funny for me, but I mean, if they're dealing with, okay, for spoiler, right, if they're dealing with a being that controls time, having time be disorienting actually is a really interesting use of like a literary technique, right? Like, so I'm gonna let that exist as it exists, like that. Like, yes, it was a little disorienting for me, but I'm also kind of wondering if there was a reason for it, right? Because we're dealing with a being who's controlling time, and we have a very linear set of what time means as humans, right? So that was a little disorienting, but also there was like the thing, like there was jeans mentioned at one point, and I was like, oh wait, like I just didn't feel like the characters would be wearing jeans. Not so much that they couldn't, but just for whatever reason, because it is a fantasy, because of the magical powers, because of the god beings, because of the different realms, that kind of pulled me out. And there was a couple of times where the food descriptions actually pulled me out too, because they made me hungry. So, but I thought they were like well done because they made me hungry. I was like, oh, I should go eat something. Like, that sounds great. But then I was also like, but a food option might have been a different, or like another way to like explore the culture, or like each of the cultures of the different realms. Like, food would be a really interesting way to play with that. So I was just, like, that kind of pulled me out occasionally. But I mean, other than that, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the pacing. I enjoyed her description. Sam Lockhart's, I guess I don't know if I'm using the appropriate pronouns. If anybody else does, let me know. I'm assuming
she, her.
She, her. Okay, great.
She, her, yeah.
But I really did. I enjoyed it overall. And, one of the things I think that we always try to talk about, especially in the month of December, right? Because the month of December is the independent read. And honestly, there's nothing that like I would have pointed out saying this was an independent read, right? Like, not that we are trying to find those ways or anything like that, but I think it was enjoyable. I thought it was fast-paced. I could honestly see it being a really good like Netflix series. I think with some of the descriptions and the shaders and just the difference of like all of a sudden it's loyalty and like the matriarchal society, and I think there could be some really cool things they could do with it if someone developed it into a series somewhere. I would probably watch it, and I am going to pick up the second book. I just finished today, but I'm interested enough to go see what the sequel has to offer.
Yeah.
You want to go, Vanessa?
Sure. So I really liked it as well. If you know me, you know I love mythology and origin stories, especially. And so I really liked that we were getting, an origin story here with the gods and the creation of the world and everything like that. I also gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And I think there were like a couple things I noticed that made me give it 4, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I was confused at certain points. Like, we're introduced to a lot of characters, like you guys said. And so at one point, I, read in the scene where Sarah meets Noble, and I'm going back and like, wait, was he introduced before? Do I know already? Go back and
Yeah.
oh, yeah, he was there in the beginning. And yeah, so just having a hard time keeping track of some characters. But by the end, I think I got most of the characters. I think I figured out most of the characters. But what I was still confused about is some of the world building and just, how exactly things work. Like the Aaron or something, the system that they tried to get access to delete their information and recalibrate and all of that. So that and just certain parts of the world building, I'm still a bit confused about, including like I'm so the gods like I understand, Freya, as uh, Asriel,
Ezanine?
Very
Azine and Zarael. Yeah, Zarael.
Asiri and Rock. Like those are the 3 main ones that I get because we see them most. Carney, I kind of understand a little bit. Still don't really get Lyndall's role in all of this, since we didn't see him that much anyway. So, yeah, there's some things that I would need more clarification for. But a couple things that I did notice. So some things that I like and some things that I didn't like. So one of the things I did like we mentioned earlier, was the having the polyamorous relationship in there. So I did like seeing that in there because that's actually something I have been learning more about and reading about, is polyamory. And so I like that we get to see that type of relationship in there. And also not just, well, possibly, we don't know yet, but not just polyamory with the gods, but it seemed like they were hinting that it might become a thing for Sarah and Russ and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting if they do that with their characters as well, I think. And then some things that I think I would say probably could have two major things I think probably could have been worked on a little bit more, and I think would have made it better. One was just like how we get the information. I get that like this is a pretty heavy fantasy world, so there's going to be a lot of world building and stuff done. But I just think that I wish there was a way it was done without so many flashbacks. Which, you know, I get the flashbacks, and some of them, you know, were really good and helpful to know good information. But there were some that I was just like, did we really need a whole flashback section for this? Can we just like gotten this info another way? So that was one. I just think I would have cut back on some of the flashback scenes. And then the other thing I noticed was there were parts, there were moments where it seemed like she had hopped, and I think she was trying to do like a third person omniscient POV where you can, the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of all the characters in the scene. But I feel like that's something else that made the story a little bit confusing, because she starts off the story as third person limited from Brandy's POV. And then there were certain scenes where she would be in the head of Jack or another character. And I'm just like, that's where it got confusing as to, you know, who said what, who did what. And I'm just like, I think, like, I would say if she was trying to do the omniscient, third person omniscient during those times, I would say it should be consistent. Like, if you're going to do it throughout the whole book, not just in certain scenes or parts. Because then it does come off as like head hopping, essentially. So I would have been consistent with it from the beginning. And the other thing I would say is if you're doing omniscient POV, your narrator needs to have a very, very distinct voice that's different and separate from the characters in the story. And the narrator's voice did not seem distinct from Brandy's. And so that's what added to the confusion whenever we'd switch POVs. So that was kind of the thing I'd say.
Yeah, so I kind of echo what everyone else has said too. I did really like this book. I will be picking up the sequel. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I also echo what everyone said about being a little bit confused too. So I feel like, wow, like first book of 2024, we're all on the same page. Like,
yeah,
on the same line.
That happened. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Good for consistency, I guess. But yeah, with a lot of the different characters, like I think it was because I didn't like when she went to the school, and then I was like, well, how important is this person? Are they coming back? When they went to where Tara, with Tara's group, and then I was like, oh, they seem kind of important, but then they kind of just were like, I just didn't know how important they were. But I think I really liked Brandy being as strong as she was, and just I was like, wow, she's like a badass. Like she's like, like the Black Katniss kind of thing. Like, but so I really liked her for that reason, and it's interesting because I think like despite some of the head hopping or the omniscient POV, because I did notice some of that too, and me not really finding things that I related to Brandy with, like I was still able to connect with her as a character. And I think because she was so like valiant, and it was like seeing her interactions with Freya and her being like, I have this duty and everything. So I guess she was more of like someone I admired. But I think like and so it was really interesting for me because this was a lot more descriptive than I'm used to reading. And usually I don't really like a lot of description. I'm more of like that no nonsense, just kind of get through the story kind of thing. But her CM Lockhart's writing was so strong that I really enjoyed it, because I was thinking about the very first chapter where she meets Jack and like tries to recruit him. And I was like, man, this is so intense. This is so like badass. But I was reading it and I was like, wow, if I wrote that chapter, it would have gone so much faster. Because I was like, for what happened in that, I wouldn't have so it was just like interesting. I really liked her writing style, even though it was so much different from what I'm used to reading. But I think like one of the other things that kind of pulled me out a little bit that I noticed, it wasn't until Noble and Sarah got together that I realized that like it made me realize I didn't really believe Brandy and Jack's relationship, because there was a jump between them meeting and then them being together and like loving each other. And then Noble and Sarah had that like really hot like makeout scene, and I was like, well, I remember like Jack and Brandy had like kind of a closed door scene, but it wasn't as descriptive as Noble and Sarah's like makeout. So that like stuck out to me as like, whoa, where did this little bit of spice come from? We didn't have this with Brandy. I would have remembered this. Well, maybe it did and I forgot. I don't know. But like it just like made me realize that like I maybe would have wanted a little more like of where their relationship was being built out a little bit. But maybe that was just the nature of the story, because like Brandy was like, I'm focusing on this mission and like, yes, I love him, but like we got to figure all this out. And so it wasn't as much of a forefront in her like subplot. But I think because the relationship was already formed, I would have liked a little more context so that we could have felt that too. Especially because of everything that happens at the end with Jack. Like it would have made that pack more of a punch of like, oh my gosh, is he dead? Like, and her trying to get him to have the god's powers. It's like, I felt like that would have had a little bit more of an impact.
But I see what you're saying about that, Holly, but I also think that because he was like, I mean, technically he wasn't Roth's vessel at the most of the story, right? Yeah. But because Roth is the only one that she's given her heart to, I think that is what made that like okay for me. I was like, yeah, like she loves him. She's the only one that like, he's the only one that she loves, even though, all this other stuff. And she's trained herself not to have the emotion. She's a weapon. Weapons don't have emotions. Doesn't she have that quote? Like, I am a weapon. I have, and like, so I think, I would have liked to have seen some of their other buildup, like how they got to that point. But I was okay with it in terms of just like because it was not the primary plot point. The action was such a primary plot point there. And I don't know if there would have been a good way to make more of that without, one, more flashbacks, but two, making him more of a distraction, right? Because that's not his purpose in this story yet.
That's true.
Yeah.
So but I see what you're saying of like
I
yeah,
do. Yeah.
romance.
So maybe, those are good points. So like maybe some sort of in between, like maybe there could have been a couple more interactions, like not as a flashback, but between, throughout the book, maybe a couple more of interaction.
But I mean, I guess I also just knew that he loved her from the get-go because he came into the thing and he was the immediate first person trying to get her help. Like he was braving Tiki, he was braving the elements, he was covering her with his body as they were going down the mountain at like incredible speeds. So I was just like, oh yeah, this man loves her. Like, duh.
Yeah, they kept saying over and over again, like how, like, that they'd known each other for 7-8 years or whatever. So I think like because they had gone through like the history and context and saying that, I at least kind of had that background, like that I felt like they were, besties in a way, but they obviously like really cared for each other. So like that at least didn't feel out of left field as much as the Noble Sarah thing. Like I didn't see that coming. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff around Sarah, like Russ, and that Russ likes her as well. He has a crush on Sarah. Oh, and then like that one of Carol's daughters was like kind of looking at her like,
oh
she's
yeah,
cute. And I'm like, yeah, everyone likes Sarah, but I thought that was funny. But that I wasn't a huge fan of that scene of the two of them, but it is what it is.
No, because for one, she was drunk.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing it? Then the girl's drunk. What do you think?
We should trigger warning.
Drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we should be trigger warning on that. Like there's questionable.
Yeah.
She did give consent though, right? What page?
Yeah, but it goes back to, can you give consent when you're drunk?
Yeah, I mean, she was.
I thought she got drunk after. Did she get?
No, she was drunk before, because he was like, oh, you only had one drink, because he was like, oh, somebody that she couldn't hold her drink because she had that one drink and she was like really drunk and stumbling and stuff, and then you're gonna put her up against the wall and try to do stuff with her. Even though she did say,
she was at least pretty hard.
Yeah, and I mean, at one point she did say yes, but when you're drunk, are you really thinking properly?
Oh, she did say, like, when you look at me like that, it makes me want to kiss you. And he's like, oh, all you had to do was ask. Right. But it's the point of, she wouldn't have normally said it, and it loosened up her tongue just enough, right?
Yeah, like, just enough for her to. Mind you, when you're drunk, your truth does come out. When most people are drunk, their truth does come out. So she probably was feeling and thinking all that. Yeah. But still, she was drunk and he shouldn't have. To me, that's just me though. I don't think he should have
Yeah, but I'm going to point this out too. That like, what is it? Carne, C-A-R-N-E, right? Like, if you look at the root of that, it looks like carnal, which is like body. Right, and so like it makes sense that carnal, like that Noble is the vessel.
Yeah, because he's the vessel for carnal. Yeah,
he's the vessel of this lust area. Yeah. So I could definitely see that being once again a technique that was played with. But
because it does say that a lot of people wanted him.
Yeah, and he liked her more than she realized because of that whole conversation of Brandy with Russ. Like, yeah, she's pretty dense. Like, he's like, like everybody's kind of paying attention and she's kind of dense. So yeah, that's a point that probably somehow should be trigger warned.
Yeah.
Also, I was going to add about Noble's character. So I I'm still kind of on the fence with how I feel about his character. And especially the way he treats women, and I'm like, I know Sarah likes them, but I'm like, I don't right now. I can't really ship them together.
But I don't think he's just treating women like that. I don't think that's fair to say, because we see him treat the waiter like that. We see him like flirt. Like, I think he flirts.
No, but I do know about that. But what I meant was, so there are two instances I was gonna point out. So the first
with
one,
Tara.
yeah, well, one with Sarah, one with Tara.
Yeah,
But
one with Tara, definitely.
one where in chapter 19, that scene where they're making out and then Russ comes along and they break apart, and then he is like, she's all yours. Noble says, sliding his hands into his pockets and stepping away. In that part right there, I was like, I know it probably wasn't meant to be taken this way, but to me, that moment felt like he just saw her as a toy to use and discard whenever he was done. So that part right there, it probably wasn't meant to be taken that way, but that's kind of how I felt with it. And then the other part was with Tara, when she, let me see, I know I put a note in here on that. It's when she is like, when they're all there talking, and she's like, so what happened with this earlier? And he was like, payment. That was the part I noted, that I'm like, so basically he treated her as a prostitute or sex slave worker, and no one called him out on it. Like, so those were the two instances of why I say that. But
I mean, I definitely, when she was like, don't come back here, I'm done with you, I was like, good for her. Like, good for her.
Yeah.
Because the line that Brandy said to her right before that was like, you're a child if you think affection is anything other than freely given, and you shouldn't want to be with someone who makes you earn it. And I was like,
right.
oh, these lines are fire. But that's why I think with Sarah particularly, I think he's interested in her, but he's not serious about her like she is about him, because he's interested in her like a puzzle right now, because she won't fawn over him, because she's not succumbing to his lustful attempts because of all of that. So I do think he's being honest when he says, like, you're interesting to me and you're fun to look at. Like, I think that is all true, but I understand, like I think he needs to grow a little bit more before I could ship them, but I think she needs to also grow before I can ship her, because she's not.
Oh,
She's just, she's immature at this point, but she's designed to be. She's a poor girl, an outcast, someone who's been bullied. She's, not a shadow. She's different in all of that. But I mean, I did read like the synopsis of book 2, so I get why that is, right? Like, I get some of that, but I get what you're saying too, Vanessa, about him not treating people well. And I think if they can figure out a way to balance, now I don't know about this Russ part of that triangle yet, right? Like, I don't know how to feel about that, but if they both can do some, significant growth, I think they could balance each other out in a really good way. So I see the potential for the growth there. But that he is just, he does what he wants because he can get away with it because he looks good. That's kind of what we know about him, at least on surface level, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of all of that, that reminds me of the beginning. In the earlier chapters, I think this was chapter 4, with Sarah, when when Brandy is there and she's telling Kyle to get out, and then she has to leave and stuff. And he was like, you never loved me, or when he was surprised by how she was treating him, and she basically said, you loved me, Kyle. The feeling was never mutual. I was like, wow.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I laughed because I was like, I know I can be brutally honest sometimes, but I never thought.
Yeah,
I wrote a big yes.
Probably wouldn't be in a relationship with someone who you knew loved you that you didn't feel the same for. So you were just passing time with.
I wrote a big yes on that, in that scene where he's like, you can't just kick me out. I'm the one who gave you this house. And she said, a gift means it's not yours anymore.
I know. There was
drop.
Yes.
I did put like Sarah was, I mean, she was being harsh with Kyle. I said, I mean, she knew that he loved her, so she could have been a little bit less harsh, like rejecting him out loud. Like, I think it was on purpose, but I feel like maybe saying like for her to say, I know you care about me, but like, unfortunately, I just can't reciprocate that feeling. Something like that. Like, she could have been a little bit nicer, but
it's funny that she wasn't.
It's funny.
She was keeping it real.
Yeah, it is funnier, but
That's true.
But it also makes sense because she didn't necessarily have someone to train her in those relationships, pathways, right?
yeah.
Like she's not someone who was raised by people. She did a lot of raising of her brother, and if you don't have an influence like teach you how to do that, it's just like out it comes. Okay, well, here we are.
But to me, that was with her character, that was the strongest that I kind of saw her be. Because it seems like the rest of the book, she was like weak and scared, and
she had the motivation
wasn't.
there. She had the motivation of protecting her brother.
Right, but with her, I'm assuming that she was Asari's vessel.
Yeah,
so did all of them have powers, or was it just Brandy that had the powers?
All of them.
If the gods. Okay, so if they all had something and the gods gave this to them, and Asari was her god, and he was supposed to be the darkness and
Healing.
all this.
She heals. Yeah, she heals.
Yeah.
Because she puts in here that he has darkness to him, one that thrives on the pain of mortals. So and he likes to strike them with blindness and disease. I never saw in here where it said that he was healing folks. I don't remember seeing.
I remember writing it down because she, it was somewhere between page 17 and 45. She was gifted with healing powers from Asari.
Okay, I didn't remember reading that.
And that's why she healed Brandy of the fever.
And why she can heal Jack. Like, that's why at the end it's actually kind of funny because Asari's like, yeah, I heard your incessant pleas. I'll heal you, beloved. Let's go.
Okay, I missed
but there was a lot, so for you to miss that.
Yeah, so I missed that part because I was like, okay, if he's the darkness and all this, and he likes giving people diseases and all this, then why is she so weak acting?
It also makes sense though that he has the ability to heal and would pass it to her, because if he can give diseases, I'm sure he can take them too.
Take them away. Yeah, that's true too.
And the moon changes. We see the moon change nightly. It grows, it changes. And I think, too, because there's that balance between him and Roth of, like, whatever comes in Ansari's domain, Roth chases away. Like, so, like, yeah, the disease could exist, but Roth is also there, as like a kind of counterpoint, a balance point. But yeah, she I agree that she was weak, but she also is not one that is but I think this actually gets to a point of that Brandy said at her, like, yes, you have a choice over your own life and you've never made it.
You never made it. Yeah.
And I think she is playing the victim a little bit, right? And I think that that's going to be a really interesting thing that she's going to have to overcome in book 2. Because did anybody else read the synopsis for book 2?
I didn't.
Yeah,
but
I
want to.
I know.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so Teresa did, and but I mean, it's clear knowledge. You guys will find it, but there's a point there where Sarah needs to make a bid for the throne. They're working on Sarah being the next queen.
So
of the kingdom. So she's gonna have to really overcome a lot for that to even be a possibility.
To even happen.
And honestly, I could definitely see why Russ and Noble would both need to be interested in her then, because now she has a consort from 2 of the 4 domains. And, that's starting to make things a little bit easier. So, I think she's got a lot to overcome. But I think she was meant to be kind of weak, and because they are protecting her, they are trying to save her, and they're trying to protect her because the gods know that she is going to be bid for the next queen, which I mean we don't have that knowledge as readers of book 1.
You can assume she's a princess, a princess.
But I mean, to be fair, when she came on at one point I was like, oh, I bet she's the next queen. Like, oh yeah, I bet she is.
You always predict.
Yeah, but when they called her princess, I was like, oh, so maybe she's supposed to be in Leah's spot or whatever.
I did like, though, when Russ called her by her given name, her princess name, that all of a sudden, the first time somebody heard him do that he was like on the floor of the travel pod. Like, how funny is that?
How did it jumped on him?
And isn't the name of the pod is Ciel Noir, so which is dark sky, right? Which I thought was really poignant. Like that's fun. I like that. Especially like if you're traveling through a star or like with Asari's domain and in the darkness and you're using the darkness to cover you, and that was a nice touch.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the fact that she and Jack, that was something that I like to see too, was how she and Jack just worked so seamlessly as the team, and how like everybody deferred to her. So that was pretty cool to get to see, because they Lockhart even said Russ underestimated her. He thought they were equals, which they clearly were not. And like he did not understand that she was the reason they were all there. Like Noble wouldn't let Sarah interject for Russ. He was holding her back, keeping her safe, but keeping her out of it, right? It wasn't her place to be in that. And then like Brandy and Jack were like, boom, boom, like she's got him dangling over the side. Like I'm picturing did you ever see Anastasia when we were kids, like the animated movie Anastasia? When they're trying to jump off the train in the snow?
Oh, yes.
That's what I was envisioning as she was holding Russ out over the thing. Like, show me one more time. Like, try me one more time.
And that's why I think it was so powerful to see his reaction when he found out. Like, he was so devastated that she was like keeping these secrets from her, and she's like trying to explain herself as to why like she hadn't told him that she was, basically Freya incarnate. And so I thought that was powerful. And I really I love the scene where they're like, oh, well, if the what were they called? Yeah, like if the vessels or like if the apprentices can be destroyed, then maybe like the gods can too. And I was like, oh dang, something's gonna go down.
Oh.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to highlight too about Lockhart's writing technique and writing style is she did a really excellent job of giving us echo points of each other throughout the story, of making sure that what she started in the first act, she gave an echo point to, you know, because to Heather's point, when Brandy then finds out that Jack knew that she was Freya and he didn't tell her, like they had that same conversation. And so like it was really nice to see that like I think it says that Lockhart understands storytelling, right? Because we start at the top of the circle and we go back, and as soon as we're at like 4 o'clock, it's 12 and 6, right? You've got those equal and opposite forces always playing out, and that juxtaposition is really nice to see. And I thought she did an excellent job with that, because I can pinpoint several points off just like without even thinking about it, of like, here's that echo, here's what this is referring back to. So that's a technique that we do see quite frequently through good stories, right? Is that foreshadowing and then like kind of the wrapping up.
Yeah.
So I thought that was excellent.
So do y'all think that they went kind of light on Glenn?
Yes and no. She must have a purpose for the second book.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because I was like, they could have took her out, but then they was like, nah.
Yeah.
We're just gonna punish you.
Yeah. Do I think they went light on Bert? Yes.
Yeah.
I think Bert is way too big of a problem that has not been dealt with at all appropriately yet. But
at all.
This Grace daughter of his, that's bullshit. He created that daughter. That is not a real daughter.
Nope.
That's bullshit. She's a hologram or some shit. You wait and see.
Yeah.
The red hair, who gave her that ability? That's what they said. The red hair, who gave her that? That's why they painted it on her. Bert himself gave it to her. Crying out loud.
Yeah, his character cracks me up. I'm like, okay, Glenn they must need in book 2, because I mean she went against everything, so they could have actually just like taken her out.
Yeah.
Which I was shocked that Freya was like, no, let's just punish you. So I was like, yeah, she's probably gonna have a.
But she's just. She's always just. Yeah, she's not nice. She's not nice. They made it clear to that. But she's just, and she's a judger of souls. And I think that is very interesting in terms of that. Like, because it always says that like, Freya, like mother of, you know, mortal, incarnate, whatever, right? And then it's like just, like however they describe her. That's always the last word. But I really liked that, like, dichotomy of Freya being like, in my head it's the Persephone myth, right? The Queen of Death, Flower Maiden, like she's both, and I like that.
That's why I'm interested then, since they went light on Glenn, because in the We Are Dying Gods blurb, it's like, but when their greatest enemy offers to become their ally, offering up Freya's darkest secrets in exchange for their trust, Brandy begins to question who it is they should be protecting.
I don't think that's Glenn. I don't think Glenn is the enemy. I think it's Bert.
Okay, yeah. Because I was just like, what? The greatest enemy? So
yeah, Glenn's trying to like start the rebellion and things there, but I think Bert is still a bigger problem enemy-wise.
Let's see how that plays out.
Yeah. And then Naji, do you think that she's gonna like eventually turn on Brandy?
I actually thought she was one of the other vessels at some point. So I don't know. I thought she was one of the vessels.
She could go either way, because Brandy was so mad at her that she could that could make her want to just turn the other way.
Yeah, because she was playing all three sides.
Yeah, I actually thought Tara was going to be one of the vessels eventually too, which she still might be. I think if she does turn, she's not going to find mercy.
Oh no.
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 No
Nah.
mercy.
Yeah.
Because she's already this close to losing it, and she doesn't. I think she underestimates Brandy. Not
Yes.
in her abilities, maybe a little bit in her abilities, but more in that she underestimates her own importance to Brandy.
Mhm.
She's using that to get
Mhm.
her a bit more immunity, I think, than
Mhm.
she probably is going to find.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There were two things that I kind of wanted to bring up as well in here. And so one was the questioning of so two of the themes that I kind of caught in here. One of the big ones was blindly following authority, leadership of like the gods and the kingdom, and not being able to question anything. And now, like Brandy, having to start to, as she's finding out more and more of the truth, starting to question everything she knew, and having to decide her own path moving forward. I thought that was a big one, an interesting thing throughout here, and just how they were saying in the beginning how they pointed out that any dissenters, any blasphemers who questioned the gods or like said they didn't exist or whatever would automatically be sent back to the gods. Like you're
Mhm.
it's a very, we see this as like from the beginning a very, very rigid world or society where things are a certain way and you don't question it, um, you don't debate it or ask questions or whatever, and that's starting to change, and as we can see for the characters, I think it will more so in the second book as well. Just like the way of doing everything, I think we might see come into question. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the other theme in here, a smaller theme that I noticed, was what this book was saying about beauty and our standards of beauty. Because it was interesting to me that they had Sarah, who's blonde haired, blue eyed, slender, thin, pale girl, trying to make us think that she's not beautiful or that she's undesirable or whatever because she's so rare and no one in this world has blonde hair and blue eyes. And then whereas Brandy and some of the others are more desirable, and of course they are the ones with dark skin, um, and Brandy has the green eyes, which everyone always comments about her beautiful green eyes, and so just seeing that that comparison and that what we normally in our world in our society would consider as the ultimate standard of beauty, at least as far as what the media portrays, that was not this. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that was
And
definitely breath of fresh air to have that. Like,
and to kind of build on that, the Sarah is attracted to Russ, even though Russ is described as maybe something that might be typically more unattractive according to the media or whatnot. Like, even if she's not like attracted, she's at least attracted enough to find him comfortable and safe and to be interested maybe in pursuing something with him because she doesn't feel like she has to put on any pretenses with him. He's helped her a lot, you know, and so like there's some really nice subtext about that too. You know, it takes all kinds of time. I like that.
Yep.
I had a question though, because I was like, well, now that I finished it, I guess, it's probably not gonna, it's not gonna end up going this way. But one of my theories that I was thinking was when we get the story of, or when we see the flashback of like Zarel coming to prey on the gods and telling them he's got an apprentice that is going to try to destroy them and destroy their realm, and he needs them to make a vessel in the mortals to try and stop his apprentice, and he can't stop him himself and all of this. And when we see that, and then later on when they're talking about the apprentice, and I forget who it was, I think maybe Sarah or someone asked, why would we do that? And someone was like, so that's what you think is happening? Someone got blessed with the ability to manipulate time and they're just playing with it. And so in my head, I was thinking, okay, so what if that scene with Zarel was actually his apprentice as a name? I forget his name.
Azine.
Azine.
Yeah.
So I was like, what if it was Azine actually pretending to be Zarel and because he wants to play with time. So he's like setting all this into motion to see how the gods are going to react, what they're going to do, and just kind of experiment and play around. Basically with everyone, with the gods, with the mortals, with time.
Ooh, that's a good thought. They can definitely do some fun things with that.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't think it will go this way. But now that I've finished it, but it was interesting to think that. I was like, that would be pretty interesting if it was.
Well, I could see that being a really strong possibility because the only thing that is so unpredictable is mortals, right? A mortal can be exceptionally unpredictable. Even if you think you know them, you know their motivations, and if it's a god dealing with a mortal, maybe time still definitely has an effect on a mortal, but I don't know, it's that fate versus free will thing. That's that trope that it's played into, right? Is it fated because the gods say so, or is it free will because the mortals are now affecting? Because even Freya has made such a point to Brandy to say you're at the point where you have to choose or don't. It's up to you now. It's up to you. I've done the guiding. I've done all the guiding I can do. This is your choice. So we're highlighting that free will. But then at the same time, it's we've been preparing this for thousands of years, hundreds of years, right? So it's that kind of oh, here's that, and the fate, the free will. But there's something else I was going to say about that. I don't know what it was, but it was something like that. So I don't know. I could see it, especially if they're playing with the time and they're playing with it, Azine's playing with it. I mean, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's just scary because it's like Azine or Zarael could die, but so could any of the gods now, you know?
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
I was
But
like,
this-
man, this was a mic drop ending.
I
It
love
also
that end
kind of
scene.
felt like a little bit of Space Jam where they're like signing the contract. Like
Uh-oh.
it's the Galaxiers who are like in charge of making the thing. And I don't know if anybody's seen the memes online where it's like there's a reason why Marvin the Martian had to be the referee because he was a Looney Tune and an alien. So he was the one right in the middle, right?
I didn't catch that.
But he's the
That's
alien, right?
hilarious.
So it's like there's something that felt very like Space Jammy about this. Like, okay, we're about to see this great chess match, but it's not just a chess match, right? Like, so there's something really interesting about that. Like, I mean, I know Space Jam is basketball, but like, you know, there's something there that's really interesting. So, yeah.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, because I did really like it, like towards the end there, where Brandy does doubt herself and her ability. Like, she kind of was anxious about things, and like especially when, you know, Freya, like when she was talking with Freya, and I felt like that was a nice like vulnerability that she had shown that, you know, I hadn't really seen in other parts of the book. But then, you know, at the end now it's like it seems like she's like really owning it now, and it's like, yeah, no, I got this. Like, I'm a badass.
Well, and the like tagline for book 2, I think, is like she is not the goddess you pray to. Like,
Yeah.
And what
Yep.
about the last line being the title? You know, we are the origin of a new era of gods. I was
I
just
love
like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yes.
and it was
Yeah.
close to then they had a line in the last chapter that was close to what the sequel is called because it said you have always been the wrath of the gods, but this is we are dying gods. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
Mm.
Yeah, on the back of the second book, I'm sorry, Vanessa. On the back of the second book, it says, "When you pray to the goddess, do not ask for mercy."
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's gonna be.
It's gonna be good.
Oh boy. I want to see. I can't wait to find out what happens.
Same.
I was just on the part of what Alicia said, the tagline being "She's not the god you pray to." I feel like that just goes back to what I was saying and reinforces that theme of questioning things and questioning the gods.
Yes. Oh, this is so good.
Maybe after we all read the second one, we can hop on as like a different like additional talk, you know. And,
Yeah.
and discuss
That
it.
would be great.
I already borrowed the second ebook from my library, so
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I like her dedications in these too. In the first one, I'm assuming this is her dedication. She put, and "We Are the Origin," she puts, "For the black girls who aren't all that nice. This one is for you."
I don't know if I
But
saw
then-
that in the ebook, but that's awesome. I'll have to go back
Yes.
and check and see.
But then in the second book, she puts, "For the black girls who never wanted to be magic. You simply existing are enough."
Oh, love
Oh, that's so sweet.
Give me right here, why don't you?
Yes, I was like, oh,
In
I was
her,
like, this is gonna be so good.
in her kind of bio, it said, I didn't realize that she is the founder of Written in Melanin LLC, which encompasses a weekly podcast and YouTube channel of the same name, and the Melanin Library, an online database of books written by Black authors. So
That's
I definitely want to
awesome.
check those out.
Oh yeah, I know I followed her on Instagram, but I didn't realize she's got.
Yeah, it's other stuff.
Yeah, her podcast is actually really good.
Oh, nice.
I've listened to some of her episodes, and it's really good.
Yay.
Cool.
And she interviews a lot of different Black authors.
Oh. Oh yeah, and here's okay, cool. The podcast
I
is on
just
YouTube.
noticed the dedication is not in the ebook.
Oh,
Oh, it's not.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm a bummer.
Oh.
Bummer. Maybe she can fix it. I don't know. I don't know how the file got uploaded, but
Yeah.
maybe it can be re-released with the dedication.
I just thought those was pretty cool dedications.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I think that what Celeste Hart says, this book hits on every level, is very accurate. We had a good
Accurate.
chat about this book. If you'd like to, if you're watching the replay, feel free to put in your thoughts and comments down below, or you can chat with us on Discord or Goodreads in our forums. And then you can check us out next month for us to discuss What the River Knows
Yeah.
by Isabel Ibanez.
This is one I grabbed in my book haul, my Christmas book haul.
Oh wait,
Oh,
seriously?
cool.
Yeah,
just happened?
before I even knew.
Oh my
It's been
gosh.
on my
Oh,
radar
cool.
for a while.
Oh, before. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So that's
That is
perfect.
cool.
Nice.
See, what did you say the dedication on the second book was?
The dedication on book 2, let me get it. It says, for the black girls who never wanted to be magic, you simply existing are enough.
And the first one
And it's
is
in
for
this
the
one.
and the
And
first
then-
one is the black girls who aren't all that nice. This one's for you.
Yeah, and that was in the one that we read.
So that dedication is in book 2 of the ebook, but in the first ebook, there's no dedication.
Oh.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe she switched it up.
There's a reason.
Oh,
Maybe.
yeah. Maybe she.
Oh, the
I do want to
melanin
say
one.
the headers of her chapters. I really liked a lot of
I did too. Yeah, we
the
Yes.
quotes and things.
Yes,
Yeah.
that made it so like
Yeah.
made it more real, like part of that world building. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it's in the library.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked
Yeah,
that.
I like the way she did the header quotes.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I'm just going on the written in melanin so I could like add it.
I know.
I was like, oh wait, I'm adding all of the things.
And we're
Oh.
still here real quick doing like that part. I mean, I know we got to wrap up pretty quick here, but I think my favorite of the headers was the one that said, every sky has horizons. Find them and never let anybody cross them. And it was later in the back half of the book. I just read it today. So, you know, literally the back half, probably the back 30%. But I thought that was just such a good, like allusion to boundaries, right? Like everybody should have boundaries. It's your job to figure out what they are, where they are, and not to let other people cross them or take advantage of them. And like that one, I mean, there were some that were really good. Like I really enjoyed those others too, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that one about like every sky has horizons was just like a really nice like relation to a boundary in my interpretation.
Oh, I love
There
that.
was other ones. Yeah.
I like this one. It says, do not fall in love with the goddess for who you wish her to be, for she will love you in the same breath that she denies you mercy.
Ooh, yes, I remember that one.
And wow. Yeah, some of these headings were just
Bangers.
yes, they were just like so awesome. I'm like, yeah, she really thought these through.
She did, yeah.
She did. Great. She had really strong writing. So maybe we'll be on here. Oh, what were you gonna say, V? I'm calling you V now. I guess that's your new nickname.
There was another quote in the beginning that said, it's not the chapter header, but in one of the quotes was, "Then let the gods punish me as they see fit." But she snapped, "But any god that would have me save a stranger, and risk the death of my own children is not a God worth serving. And I really like that one. That stuck out for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I forgot to do quotes. Oops, sorry. Skipped
I was saying I might have to put some of those more in the talk. I probably gotta get students.
Well, thank you, everyone. We had a good chat. Like, we could chat for a lot longer about this book.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, I hope you have a great start to the year, and we will be here same time, same place next month. Okay, thanks, everyone. Bye.